So you guys are the first people to hear this poem. I wrote it like a week and a half ago. It's called Maybe If We Were Superheroes. He's 9 years old. He spends most of his days building nations out of toy blocks and ruling them from his bedside castle. He was invincible. And somewhere, just far enough away to be comfortable, another small boy wishes that he could just be invisible and hidden underneath anorexic shrubs, hoping that his black skin is faithful and like true love keeps him looking like midnight. He keeps his eyes closed, knowing that the wonder still hasn't faded, and sometimes when the moon hits them just right, they can still shine like candles. And he holds his 8-year-old brother, and he holds his 7-year-old sister, and they hold their 23-year-old mother like an empty stomach holds on to pennies, presses them up against his heartbeats, hoping that the sound of their courage will somehow drown out the sound of the caged lions inside their stomachs. She was 5. And for the first time, she's making the 3-mile journey across landmines, hoping that her small feet are holy enough to get her safely to the schoolyard at the end. She's sick and tired of hearing the same old stories, and they promised that they would teach her how to write her own. She hears the helicopter stanza from up above, and so with all the confidence of a question mark, she whispers a lullaby, hoping that the sound of the melody will somehow reach up into the engines and change the heart of battle, or at least help it rethink its target. He was 16. And he's been staring too long in front of too many mirrors, wondering if this really is as good as it's gonna get, hoping that he can somehow find a way to let out enough air so that he never has to worry about breathing ever again, and the mirrors will fog up like a lost rain cloud, and his reflection will fade into God's afterthoughts, and the last thing he sees won't be so disappointing. She was 13. And she's sick and tired of waking up halfway through nightmares, hearing a voice that sounds nothing like her own, screaming, "Mama, don't let him hurt me," wondering why God sent his hands to protect her from the rest of the world, as though she'd somehow be safer in his arms no matter where on her he put them, no matter how loudly she screams. God never seems to be listening, and she's becoming a canvas full of broken handprints, and she wonders if this is all that she is good for. She's 19, and it's the end of the first year at college. And the food never tasted as good as Mama's. And Dad never seemed to call too often, said he was too busy being absent. So it's the third guy in 3 days, and she hasn't come any closer to feeling whole. It's the third guy in 3 days, and she hasn't come any closer to feeling like her beautiful. And it's the first girl in 19 years, and he hasn't come any closer to feeling whole. No, he doesn't feel any more like a man. He's 21 now. And they told him that he had to let you go, and that it was time to move on. But he wasn't ready, so he went ahead and tattooed your name on his arm so he'd never have to say goodbye. So that even when he was old and couldn't remember everything that you taught him, you'd still be at his side, pressing into his ribcage and holding him tightly. He writes down his words, because talking doesn't seem to be working. And he hopes that maybe angels will sneak into his room at night, open up his journals, read his pages, and then run off and tell God all of his secrets. She's 14. And the last thing that she remembers is his name and the feeling of his broad shoulders stripping her down to far more than she agreed to. She has a son. Before she's old enough to teach him how to not make the same mistakes, before she's old enough to give him a name that means something worth remembering, and he's 22 now. And the only thing he can think about is the man with the broad shoulders, because no matter how many times I tell myself I'm over you, I still wonder if my reflection looks anything like you. And do you ever wake up in the middle of the night and think about the kid with eyes that shine like candles when the moon hits them just right, or the kid with the eyes that see people the way that God does? It says that he made the world and saw that it was good, but I'm just wondering if he ever made it down to my level, because from where I'm standing, I'm not so convinced. Maybe if we all wore masks and had capes, we could just masquerade the pain, paint it pretty like a romance, and fly away like superheroes, and stand just far enough away that our pain would look like something a lot more beautiful. Thank you.